Hooray! We're on. Jen's muted. What is happening? I don't know anything. Jen's muted. Oh, man.
Clearly a conspiracy. Oh.
I think maybe her mic stopped working along with everything else.
Oh, wait, is that... Nate's also on.
Is he? I think maybe her also logged in as backdrop.
Oh, wait, is that... Nate's also on.
Is he?
And it's...
Is somebody watching and...
I'm not sure whose voices I'm hearing.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll pull up the agenda. This is going to be awesome. So as Jen was talking or telling us about, we're trying something a little different with the meeting. So we're going to talk about Backdrop, the site, in this meeting more and less in the dev call, maybe, if that works for us. If it doesn't, we'll figure something else out. So the goal of this meeting is to get people talking about Backdrop, to figure out how we're going to do community outreach and how we're going to get people interested in the project. So we have a few meta action items here. Find more people to help with outreach related tasks. See below apparently, and figure out where to manage outreach tasks, if not GitHub. And we've talked about maybe a Trello board or maybe a different repo in GitHub or whatever. And then for now, we can go look at how to market the Backdrop issue on GitHub. And there's a link in the agenda here. So, newsletter. Oh, all right.
Sorry, I was trying a new location in the house because of the lighting problem, but apparently the internet doesn't work over there. So,
well, I left off at newsletter.
Hooray! Thank you, Wes.
Sure.
Yeah, so we did manage to send a newsletter out right before the release of 1.5 that included a bunch of information about the release of 1.4 and told people what to keep an eye out for in the near future, which we think actually got all of the things we said we were going to do done, which is fantastic. So we'll probably give the new release a week or so to have its bug fix release come out, and after we get the bug fix release out, we will email everyone again with all of the stuff with screenshots and stuff that's in the new version. So that's exciting. And then it would be great if we could find somebody who is not me, who is good at doing newsletter stuff. I know how to do it, but we use MailChimp, so it's not really complicated for people to figure out how to do. I'm happy to turn access to that MailChimp account over to whoever in order to draft and manage emails. I find that even though I can send newsletters, like I can't make myself send them, like trying to get myself to do it in a timely manner. It's always like the bottom of my priority list, and trying to get someone to actually do it is really hard. So this might be a really good task for somebody who wants to contribute to Backdrop, but doesn't necessarily want to write code. They only have so much time available. They're good at writing words and uploading images. That's all you really need to be able to do. And then just make sure these things get out so that our people who have subscribed to our mailing list are interested in what's going on actually know that there is stuff going on, because we have a lot going on, but telling them about it is one too many things to have going on, apparently. So if anyone knows anyone who might want to contribute by managing our mailing list, I think that's a great place for people to jump in. So nothing urgent that needs to be done this week. Next week, we need to get that newsletter out. So I was thinking this week we could draft the newsletter for 1.5, and then it would be easier next week to just push the button. But yeah, that's where we are with newsletter. Blog posts. So we've actually been doing a pretty darn good job of getting blog posts up on backdropcms.org. We've got a bunch of people who have ideas sporadically, and when their ideas are out, we go, awesome, publish. And I think that so far that's been going really well. I would love to see somebody kind of own the blog post area of the section and do a little bit more recruiting so that we could get some different faces on there. I know that there are people who have posted blog posts then sort of feel empowered to do it again, which is good. But I also think it would be good to show more people doing more stuff with Backdrop. And I have reached out to a couple of the people who posted events on the events section of the site and asked them if they would do like a write-up of those events. And they've said yes, but I don't have time right now is kind of the general answer. So if we could get other ideas of where to recruit blog post writers and blog post content. We've got a pretty good list of things that could be written, but trying to find people with time is sort of hard. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. So I think like for now, letting things kind of come up as they come up is a good way to do it. But if we find someone who wants to kind of be our wrangler of contributors to the blog post, that would also be really good. The issue for that, if you guys are curious, is number 158 on the backdropcms.org queue. Again, if we can find a better place to handle project management stuff that's not GitHub, that might be a good candidate for moving out of there. And I think like the responsibilities for being that person are just like, if you have ideas, come up with ideas and then email people and be like, hey, do you want to write a blog post? And then if they go yes, following up with them and being like, hey, do you want to write it now or do you want to write it next week? Can we get you on a schedule? And then if they're on a schedule, making sure they stick to the schedule. And sometimes those people might need a little nudge. Like there are definitely people who are interested and willing to do it, but they're busy, right? So if you just say, hey, write it today, then they'll be like, oh, right, sorry. And then they'll write it and then it's done. And I think, you know, whenever we find someone to do that, it would be also really good, just kind of a, I don't know, just like a, I don't know, backdrop ambassador sort of role where you just get to tell people to share what they love about Backdrop. It's going to be, I think that would be a fun position for someone. So anytime anyone has blog posts, we can publish it for now. Long term, we need to find someone else to manage that. Videos. So this is something I'm super excited about for Backdrop, is getting some instructional videos and some kind of marketing-y videos and, you know, maybe like showcases. Anything anyone wants to do in video format, I think is going to be avidly consumed, which would be great. We've got some people doing some videos in Spanish, which is going to be super fantastic for people in Latin America. A lot of our documentation, all of our documentation right now is maybe in English, and I would love to see more things in more languages for more people. So that's going to be a huge step in the right direction too. But we have a shortage of videos in general. I think I didn't put a note on here after the last meeting, but in our last outreach meeting, Brian, who is one of my clients and a new Backdrop enthusiast, he's going to be doing a talk at BadCamp during the Backdrop Summit on his site and you know why he feels like Backdrop was a big win for him. He also has a pretty strong background in video creation in general. He does it a lot for his job, and he's offered to create some videos on Backdrop, and we've been kind of brainstorming about what kinds of stuff he should be focused on, how long the video should be. So we should have some underway in the works videos coming out soon, which I think he's a little bit more technical. He's kind of got a sysadmin backend, so it might be like how to set up Backdrop on your server, which I think is a good complement to a lot of the other videos that we have that are like, here's how you use layouts from the the UI perspective. So I think that'll be fun. Although we could use the UI stuff too, he can get to that as well. But I told him to do what he was most passionate about, because I think those videos will come across the best if the people are super excited about what they're talking about. So we'll see. Those should be underway. So I'm just going to add a note here that videos are coming, and we can follow up with him too to see if he needs any help with that. Another thing that we also thought about doing in terms of promoting those videos is letting the content creators post them under their own YouTube account, wherever it is. And if they tell us about it, we can curate those into a list under Backdrop. We have like a channel or a playlist or whatever it is they call it on YouTube. And then we could even feed that list into backdropcms.org. Right now in the kind of the blog news area, there's a sidebar that has these meetings, like our weekly meetings will show up there. But it would be great if we could get some like content meetings in there too. Here's some how-to videos, or my favorite thing about Backdrop, or how Backdrop saved my site money, or how Backdrop helped me achieve my dreams, or whatever it is. I would love to see those videos on that page as well. Right now it's a little kind of you're getting to see how the sausages are made, but maybe not getting to see how pretty the sausages are when they're done. So trying to get, I think, some more of those videos on there would be good. So we have ideas for how to start sharing things once we start getting content. We don't yet have the content yet. So again, it would be great if we could find somebody who would be willing to not only create these videos for us, but someone else who would be interested in following up with all of these video creators and making sure that they have all of the resources that they need and that they understand the process for publishing videos in their own accounts. And if they don't have their own account, maybe helping them get set up with one that's maybe separate from their personal identity if they're worried about that. And just kind of help get over those initial hurdles so that they can start creating content on their own whenever they like. And then we can start getting video stuff done for Backdrop. All right, so the next item on the agenda is events. And I think that right now, this is probably the most effective way for us to spread the word about Backdrop to the larger community. And that's because we don't really have any, we don't know how to reach the people we aren't reaching, right? This has been a long problem where it's like, we know who we know, we don't know who we don't know. And going to events and talking to people, I think, is a great way to talk to anyone who might be at that given event for any other reason. Be like, hey, by the way, there's this thing called Backdrop. You might not have heard about it, and just kind of explain the philosophy and what the software does and get them on board. And right now, our primary focus has been Drupal events, just because Backdrop is intended audience right now are Drupal 7 people. But we are going to need to spread out over time and reach into other audiences, because the more time goes by, the more the Drupal 7 people are going to have already made a decision about what they're doing with their software, whether they're leaving Drupal or going to Drupal 8 or staying on Drupal 7 forever, and who cares. We're going to need to start expanding our audience to a larger group of people. And so we've got some conferences that we think we could go to, some meetup groups, and I think it would be great if we can kind of continue to expand in that direction as well. So we have a list here of events that are upcoming. I'm not sure we actually have these guys on our events list on backdropcms.org, and I think that's because we're not necessarily sure who's going to what. We do have one for sure on here, the Nonprofit Software Development Summit, which is coming up, is on there. We also have Bad Camp. We know that's just around the corner, about a month away. But there's a whole bunch of others that we don't necessarily have speakers for. So again, same thing like the blog. I would love to get more people going to more events and not the same people going to the same events over and over again. As much as I love traveling and meeting people, I think it's healthier for Backdrop if we have more people traveling and meeting people. So yeah, I don't know if Neil, you want to chime in here and talk about your events.
And by my events, are you referring to Aspiration?
Well, that, and also I know you do a lot of these like tech meetup things too.
Right. So, well, I had some ideas as you were talking about possible events that we could kind of coordinate and I can help kind of co-create and co-produce. But those are relationships with organizations where I've already held some big tech networking mixers in Oakland. So there's other parties involved. So it's just half baked in my mind. I don't really have anything fully planned out, but as I'm listening and looking at the events list here, I definitely am having ideas about how to increase the exposure in Oakland. And Bay Area. So more importantly for me is just to kind of make public that I'm a big Aspiration technology ambassador and fan on the East Bay. and also Civi CRM. And in those areas, I will be promoting Badcamp. It's, I don't know, 3,000 to 5,000 people on different lists that I kind of curate. That not only in nonprofit tech and software, but also in tech startups. And I imagine there's a Drupal crowd there, even though I've not really had much exposure to that community. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a Drupal focused, but since my understanding of Backdrop is fairly straightforward, that really it's also a great on-ramp for people beginning to build tech for their organizations.
Yep. That would be great.
So outside of that, I have deep relationships with some of the bigger co-working spaces in Oakland, and I was just thinking that we could create an opportunity there for an evening or an afternoon or a demo. With Badcamp just around the corner, maybe that's something that we can talk about on that day, because I intend to be in the room learning and just, reconnecting with everybody who's going to be there.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. So Badcamp is probably our biggest event to date. We're going to do the Backdrop Summit, which is the same sort of thing we did last year on Thursday. It's going to be in the same space as the Nonprofit Summit, so hopefully we'll get a little bit of bleed from both events. So anyone who is curious about nonprofits can kind of walk next door and stick their head in and see what's going on in Backdrop, and anyone who's there for Backdrop could leave at lunch and go attend meetups in the Nonprofit Summit, vice versa. The schedule is going to be a little bit different than last year, because this year we also have a training on Friday. So last year we sort of did the training in the first half of the day. We're going to cut that out, and instead we're going to replace that with presentations from more people. We've got a couple of site owners who are going to be there doing a little bit of a case study on their site. Wes, I know you offered to do a theming presentation. I think that would be great, especially on the new basis stuff that went in. People are going to be itching to see what you can do with that. And if that's something you're working on anyway, that would be fantastic. And then we have a session accepted as well, which I'm not sure yet whether it will be on Saturday or Sunday. And yesterday I emailed to ask Wes if you wanted to be on stage for the session. I totally forgot about the summit. I think the summit is better. Like, you're going to have a bunch to contribute. But I would also love to see more faces in the intro to Backdrop general 1 hour session. I want it not to be just me and Nate talking about the thing that we made. Like, it needs to be about a community of people behind a software project. And so, Jack, I don't know if you're going to be there over the weekend. It'd be great to have you be a part of that. Wes, if you are up for being on stage for that too. I know Jim Birch is going to be there, coming in from Chicago, trying to get people who aren't necessarily PMC members to be there and talk about their role in the community as well. I think would be great. But yeah, it's starting to be like, okay, it's been a year of Nate and I giving the same talk over and over again. Let's change it up a little bit. Like, Backdrop is a community now. We need to start representing that whole community. And especially at a place like Badcamp, where we have a bunch of people who are going to be there, we should show that off. Be like, look, this is the team. Like, there's a whole bunch of us. We'll have, pictures of people who can't be there. And yeah, just finding some way to divide that information where you guys won't have a lot of responsibility in terms of creating that talk. But I would love to have more voices interrupt as we're going through it and say, actually, this is what I think. And, just have that diverse opinion board thing that we do every week up there in front of the audience for everyone to see. So if you guys are up for that, that would be great. And I'll try and see in the developer meeting later today. If anyone else is going to be there, we'll get as many people as possible involved.
Did I hear you correctly that there's going to be a Backdrop presence outside of the summit? Is that what you're talking about now?
Yeah, so we're going to have a Backdrop summit, which is all day on Thursday, a Backdrop training, which is all day on Friday, and then a 1 hour session, which will just be mixed in with the rest of the camp content. It'll either be Saturday or Sunday. I'm not sure when. I think after the summit on Thursday, it might be good. We're going to be in a bar. It might be good to start at 5 or whenever the thing ends, to just do a little social thing, right? And I think that people from the Nonprofit Summit are going to come in too. And I think it would be great if we could just kind of say, okay, let's just give everybody a chance to say, hey, what did you learn today? Let's talk about it and share. And so I'm not sure that that's officially part of Bad Camp's plan for that venue, but I can find out. It was last year, so it probably is, at least in everyone's mind, if not in everyone's budget. And if there's no actual budget for it, we can buy our own drinks. It'll be fine, or sodas, or whatever it is we want. But I think the setting will be perfect for a little hanging out and chit chatting afterwards.
Yeah. Few quick responses. I think that the social thing is really a good idea for getting folks from the nonprofit summit. I would really, I don't know who's mainly organizing stuff this year. I know Molly usually does stuff for the nonprofit summit, but I don't know this year. So
still doing it.
Yeah, I feel like it would, the cross-pollination the whole day is good to encourage. I've seen that happen at other like all-day events at conferences, and it kind of works well. You might want to consider having this is ambitious, but like maybe having someone from the Backdrop Summit go to the nonprofit summit and say like, here's what we're doing in the next room at the same time as someone is doing that from, like vice versa.
Yeah.
That I saw work really nicely and kind of cutely at another conference where it was clear that these groups are like working together, and it was clear like, we're here for both of these communities. So
Okay.
I would encourage that as an option, and talking to the organizers about it. And then, the social space afterwards can't be underestimated. I think that, I don't have to say more about it, but I'm excited to hear that. And people have to walk right past the bar to get to leave the nonprofit summit. So I think that's perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Cool. And then read the other stuff. I'd be really happy to participate in the session over the weekend. I'll definitely be there. As indicated by my total dropping the ball yesterday with the Srijan thing, which I'm very sorry about. I can do stuff that takes less preparation more easily than anything that, like, if I can show up or like talk with you a little bit beforehand and then be there, that's great. And that counts for the training, the summit, and also the session. But anything that requires much more preparation before the day of, I probably shouldn't volunteer for.
Yeah, I mean, the session won't really require any prep ahead of time. Like, the slides have been sort of the same for the last 2 years. Like, we go through and we update them and make sure the dates are relevant and the numbers are correct before each time. And every now and then we go through and we'll look at a slide and be like, this is too negative, and we'll throw it away because the session always ends up running long. So I think we've gotten to a pretty good point where we don't do any comparisons to Drupal anymore. There isn't any like, why are we here? Because Drupal is too different. We just removed that and we're like, let's show you our product, which I think is a lot more compelling now that we have a product. And so I think maybe just flip through the slides so you aren't going to be like surprised by anything. But the reason we want you there is because as Nate and I talk through these slides, we want you to be able to talk to these points too. And it should be a little more conversational, where we have a slide that's like, here's a reference point, something to talk about, but we're allowed to just talk about it. And by removing a lot of the comparison stuff, we kind of gave ourselves a little more room to have that conversation. So I think like the message we want to give to people is that like Backdrop is here and it's real and it's out and we're the people behind it, and come talk to us afterwards. Not necessarily so much like, here is a very well formatted, structured presentation. And I think that, that community aspect is going to be even more important at this point, where people are like, I know you guys made a piece of software, but like, does it have the community behind it? And I think if we can be the community, that's going to be a much more convincing presentation.
Sounds good.
So that's that. As far as the summit goes, I would love to get, again, as many people as possible on stage talking about stuff. Jack, you're pretty good about, like, if you want to just kind of do a 20-minute on the fly why to support Backdrop thing, just from the heart. It doesn't necessarily need to have a lot of homework done ahead of it. You're pretty good at doing that anyway. That would be really valuable. Wes, I know you're working on stuff already, but again, like, this is a small event. It's, last year we had maybe 20 people. I would say keeping it informal and casual is totally fine. And if you have a bunch of other things that need to be worked on and this doesn't, like, we can wing it. Like, there's a lot of that. Like, who's in the room? What do you want to hear? Okay, well, we'll talk to that. And I think that's also fine too, because maybe there are people who want to hear about the presentation you just spent a week working on. And so, I mean, I don't know what that presentation would be that people don't want to hear, but you never know, right? We did a training once. We were planning on doing a module upgrade, and nobody in the class was a developer. And we're like, well, let's skip this section and do something else. So that does happen. So yeah, I would say don't put too much time into it. We all know what we know, and we can share what we know pretty easily. Okay, let's see. I lost the agenda. Here we go. So bad camp. Oh yeah. So training. The other thing. This was kind of like, I think. Oh, sorry, that was really horrible. I think the training is going to go the same way, where we are going to do, we have a pretty structured day in the morning where we have like a script that we kind of run through and teach everyone. But the afternoon is also kind of, we now take the temperature of who's in the room and try and do material that works for them. If you wanted to help with the training, we would love to have more people there, especially if we end up getting a lot of students. It's useful to have a lot of trainers so that if someone gets stuck, you can kind of help keep them up to speed. Right now, I think there's only like 2 or 3 people signed up, but all of the training registration for Bad Camp is super low, just because we have not, like, we didn't have the training open when we opened registration, so everyone's had to come back to the site, and so it's been a little same thing with summit attendance is also super low. So we're doing email blasts, we're trying to get people back there, but it could be that we don't find out until like the day before how many people we actually have, which could be fun. But yeah, so I would say if you want to help, that would be great. I don't know how much preparation would be. Like, all of the documents are online, so you could look at them ahead of time if you wanted to, but you wouldn't have to create anything if you wanted to be a trainer. So there's that. All right.
Yeah, for the training, just to know, I'll be down to be present and kind of like floating, like just kind of handling whatever y'all need and helping folks with stuff. So.
Okay, that would be great.
If all goes well, I might be able to do that in 2017.
Okay. We'll put you on the, pencil you in. We don't have a bad camp yet, but if there's an active one. Okay.
A lot of learning and hands-on experience needed.
All right. So I think we've kind of covered events. Again, like, we don't know what we don't know about. So I'd say if anyone's watching this video and you're like, oh, there's this event that happens here that Backdrop should be at, let us know. You can send an email to info@backdropcms.org. You can tweet at backdropcms. You can create an issue on the GitHub issue queue if that's your thing. There's a lot we don't know. So definitely share information. The next item on our list is advertising. And I think last time we had this meeting, we talked about whether we wanted to do Facebook ads or not, and we decided not to support that kind of scary whatever it is they do. And so our list is now, maybe we should find specific sites to put targeted advertising on, things like CSS tricks where we know our target audience will be. We might want to recruit blog authors to do some kind of back and forth exchange, which will help get us eyes. And then also doing something with Google AdWords, where if you're doing a specific search for Drupal alternative, we could target those people and say, we are exactly what you're looking for, and give them a link to Backdrop. We don't yet have a budget for advertising. It's something we're going to need to be cautious about because we don't yet have a ton of money to be spending on things. So it'd be good to kind of come up with an idea of how much we want to spend and what kind of bang for the buck we're going to be getting is for those ads, and try and make sure that we set up something that is sensible and valuable, and we're not just kind of throwing money away on things that aren't working for us. And in order to get that done, it would be great if we could come up with somebody who understood how advertising works on the internet to kind of manage this and keep an eye on it, some kind of metrics on whether our ads are working, in addition to coming up with budgeting and where we should be placing the ads. So I don't really know anything about advertising. I occasionally set it up for clients, but I'm not, I don't watch it over the long term, so I don't necessarily understand it the way it would be good to have someone understand it. So if anybody wants to do advertising, there's a good place there where we could use your help. All right, and then the last and longest section of this meeting is about our website, backdropcms.org. And this does now contain a bunch of items that were previously on the weekly meeting. So just kind of top to bottom, what we want to do with our website is make it more effective and useful for the right kinds of people. And so we have a couple of action items of things that we are working on the website, including building out a showcase so people can actually see case studies of how Backdrop is doing good things for people who are using it. Adding a support section so that anyone who wants help with Backdrop can find a place to get it. That includes a documentation area, which we have a fantastic documentation section that was started by Doc Wilmot. It's at backdropcms.org/user guide. So it's published if you want to take a look at it. It is not yet linked from the navigation. And I think that's just because we need to do a little review of those docs. So if anyone loves reading technical documentation, we have a lot of it that could use some review. It's really good in terms of its coverage. Like, I think every core feature has some explanation on how to use it in this documentation, which is amazing, but it also makes the documentation super dense and kind of scary. And so what I've been trying to do is go through it like kind of one page at a time and decrease the verbosity so that we're saying things in kind of a less technical robotic way and more of kind of a light friendly way. And sometimes that removes some of the technical depth. And so I've been trying to move it into like another page that's like deep dive, and then you put all the technical stuff kind of not right on the face where it like hits you with like, this is for nerds, but like something that's like, hey, anyone can use this thing in the front. And then it's like, oh, if you are a nerd, we also have this really cool feature that you can use, or a geek or whatever it is people like to identify with. A web junkie, I don't know. But yeah, so we have a whole bunch of stuff. I'm a little hesitant to do too much editing to it because I know Doc Wilmot, when he wrote it all out, he had a pretty clear plan of what it was he was trying to create. And I want to make sure that he's done with the vision that he had before we start changing it, because he might have a plan that I'm not aware of. And so I don't want to start like moving stuff around until I know what the plan is. So I'll try and reach out and see where we are on documentation stuff, and if it is ready for review, edit, update, rearrange, or if it is still underway. And I know we're also waiting on screenshots. There's a lot of sections that could use screenshots. There's little bits in the code that's like, put an image in here. And that's also, anyone who has time to take screenshots of those things that's a great place for people to pitch in too. So if you like reading technical documentation and taking screenshots or adding animated GIFs, everybody loves animated GIFs, that's a great place to pitch in there too. We are also working on setting up single sign-on with GitHub. I've kind of moved this down in terms of my priority. Originally, I was like, I don't want people creating accounts if they need to create 2 accounts, but that seems like not a big deal, considering that developers don't actually get any extra permissions. So making it super easy for developers to do things doesn't really provide any advantage yet. We do have a pull request. I haven't gotten it working yet because I can't get it working on my local site. So I wanted to put it on like the API site to test, but it just hasn't been a priority to use it. So we'll get that going eventually. It's kind of close, I would guess, but not in a priority. Some things that are more of a priority are maybe optimizing our site for search. So if people search for Backdrop, right now you get a bunch of sites that sell like photography backdrops and stuff. Which is fine if you're looking for photography backdrops. But if you're looking for software, it would be good to get better at that. But if you're looking for an open source content management system, we do not rank very well, just because we don't have a lot of words on our website that say open source content management system, but we do have a lot of words that say Backdrop. So doing like a little spruce up of our words would be good. Also like adding meta tags where we need them and making sure that the site has all of the things it needs in order to be found would be great as well. Okay, we also could be working on changing the information on the site from, rather than being statement of fact, to being useful sales pitchy stuff. I don't mean like slimy sales pitchy type stuff, but like useful stuff, like people actually need to know about. And we have talked to a couple of people about just the way the site feels. This is something Mike brought up way back in the very first outreach meeting. That like even the bullet points on the homepage are very like compared to Drupal-y. And so I kind of went through and tried to take out a lot of the language that made it sound like a comparison and tried to add in a couple of the big selling points for Drupal that we had completely left off, which is kind of silly because if we're targeting people that don't already know what Drupal is, they aren't going to know that Backdrop is good at the same things as what Drupal's good at. So just I think a little more care taken to the content that's on the site would be great. Yeah, if anyone wants to kind of go around the site and make changes, that's also a great thing that we could just kind of give anyone edit access to do. There's also a couple of issues about kind of spreading a little bit more of Backdrop's culture around the website too. So I don't know exactly how or where to do that. We were thinking
that was, do you have the ticket there?
Yeah.
There was an issue. That is kind of stalled a little bit. There's been some great conversation on the issue that I've been meaning to respond to. And I also have some nice next steps there that I have not taken yet because of multiple things exploding in my world in the past few weeks. But yeah, I think there's some good ideas already on the ticket. And I think my next steps there were to kind of respond to the responses that have already been posted and then synthesize that into a first draft for something to be added. I think it's one of the pages on the site. I forget which one.
Okay. So there's definitely a larger conversation that needs to be had around that. But then there's also, like, once we figure out how to say what we want to say, we need to figure out where to say it too, which is a little bit of a technical challenge. Like, do we need to build?
I think we had talked before about maybe having a dedicated page for this, currently named culture, but we don't really know. And then going through the rest of the site and like identifying places to quote or to link back to the culture thing. So
okay, so it sounds like you've got a plan for that too.
I have a plan. The executing the plan is the issue. So I'm hoping to at the very least, oh God, it's gone so long, like respond to the comments and try to like incorporate that, especially with the Drutopia stuff. But yeah, hope to move this along. Happy to have anyone else jump in and move it along as well. But I think that in the coming week, I should be able to knock off some of my checklist things above.
Okay. There's also a couple of ideas about how to like rearrange the content on our website. And we have kind of some ideas about things we wanted to do to it that I'm not sure ever made it into the issue queue. I did try and find like a list of our existing roadmap things and couldn't find that either. So I created a kind of a handful of issues and put them into the GitHub issue queue, and I'm not sure any of those are actually going to come to pass. We'll get some feedback on what people actually want to do, and then see if we can have a clear path forward. Our own website seems to not get nearly the attention it needs because we're busy with all of the other stuff we're working on, which is a lot more fun in a lot of cases. But one thought that was brought up, I think, back in our first outreach meeting too, was whether we should re-architect the content in the navigation to target towards specific audiences. Like, should we have a link that's like, if you're nonprofits, this is what you need to know, and a link that is, you know, if you're small and medium business, this is what you need to know, or a link that says if you're developers, this is what you need to know. And I've seen that as a trend on websites all over the place. I'm not sure it actually works. I don't know if anyone has any metrics on that, but there have been a couple of sites that I worked on that we reorganized it, and it ended up creating like duplicate content in different places, and then sort of really unclear path for people who didn't land on the homepage where things were originally split. They landed on an interior page, didn't know whether they were on the page they were supposed to be on or not because there's two pages really similar. And so I was thinking, like, if there was a way that we could create pathways through the existing architecture for those people, that might be a clearer way to do it. But before we start re-architecting anything, we should try and figure out like what's actually going to work, so we don't spend a bunch of time moving things around and then have people be more confused afterwards than they were before. There's definitely, I think, a problem with our site that you don't, like, there isn't any, like, I don't know what content on there is for me, like if I am part of a nonprofit. And I think that part of that is that we just don't have enough content on there. Like if we can get case studies in there and have those like filter by industry or something, that might be enough of a way to say like, hey, here are nonprofit sites that are using Backdrop and this is what they're getting out of it. And then we could drive people to there if that's, you know, if we think that's what you're looking for, be like, oh, are you a nonprofit? Look at what other nonprofits have done. But I'm not sure that like the menu system needs to have the top level items be like the target groups we're after. So I don't know how to do that. It would be great if we could have like a content strategist expert come in and tell us like what works and doesn't work, or yeah. So to that end, I am going to have a meeting with Jordan, who's someone I met at the LA Drupal camp probably 2 weeks ago. He's like a marketing guy who believes in Backdrop and wants to help where he can. So I'm going to have a meeting with him. I think it's tomorrow afternoon, just to talk about like what should we be thinking about and working on our own website, because I don't really know that kind of stuff. And hopefully he'll give me some ideas. I would love it if anyone else wanted to participate in these conversations to help make the actual decisions. But I will try and take excellent notes and put them up in an issue queue somewhere, and we can talk about it during the next outreach meeting. Because
I'd be interested in that.
Oh, fantastic.
And I'd also say global nav should not be audience specific. That sounds like a hairball, but promotional sections that we figure out how to get people into that have like secondary navigation, that's good, because then we could have like an AdWords campaign for like nonprofit, and their landing page is like the nonprofit section or something like that.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah,
totally
thinking
doable.
about it. Yeah, thinking about it in a really site builder way, you know, like, yeah, taxonomy seems like the way to go, and I think that's worked pretty well for doing that kind of audience things. And then even if they're not in the top level, just having that kind of landing page with a little brief, like, here's why, you know, like a little nice intro paragraph for nonprofits, and then bringing in the different kinds of content. So like not making anyone have to curate that page, just bringing it in from the other content that's already being created and letting us easily tag that content.
Like have like the top of the page, it's curated, but maybe evergreen, and then the bottom is like a view with everything with that taxonomy term or something. So that
something like that. Something
relevant.
that.
Yeah. I like that. It's cool. We can do it.
I'm really taking notes. Okay, so Wes, I will add you into that meeting. If you can join it, that would be fantastic. If not, let's just talk about it afterwards and see what we can do to fix the problems. Okay, and then also we have this idea that if we had decided on some terminology for like what to call a module, theme, or layout in Backdrop the product, we could use that same terminology on the website. So like right now we have a link in the main nav for modules, one for themes and one for layouts. We can consolidate that into one and use that same word, whether it's add-ons or extensions or plugins or whatever, doodahs. We can put the doodahs link in the main navigation for Backdrop 2. And so then we'd have like one, we're not sure about doing it yet, but if we decide to re-architect the admin menu in Backdrop 2 and we use a main word, we should use that same word on the website so that people who are using the software know how to find the things that they need in the software. So that's postponed for now because we have to figure out what to name things, which takes forever. But that's okay because Backdrop 2 is not coming out 3 months from now. We've got a little time. So you can figure out what to call it and then follow it consistently both in the site and in the product. All right, and then Wes, do you want to talk a little bit about your awesome analytics dashboards?
Oh, sure. My dog is hacking up a stick. Let me find them real quick. Sorry. Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a new tool called Google Data Studio, and it's free. It's very Google Docs-ish as far as like sharing and how it, some of the base core functionality. But the idea is that I'll put a link to this in the Google Hangout chat. So the idea for this is you can have multiple data sources. They have to be Google properties. So analytics, YouTube analytics, AdWords, those kinds of things. And you can create reports that automatically update, that are dynamic, and actually see, what's going on the site. So I have one for backdropcms.org and maybe later, and one for api.backdrop.cms or cms.org. And yeah, so I cloned this from something I did for Lullabot actually, but tailored it a bit. So yeah, it's just kind of a way for us to see what content's doing well, what might not be doing as well as we think it is, and people don't need access to Google Analytics to see this. They just need access to this kind of document. So right now, this is shared with anyone who has the link. So if you click on this link, it should pop up, and it's only going to show the data that we choose to expose. So I don't think there's any major security risk here. But yeah, there's some cool data in here, and hopefully this can guide some of our decisions or thinking, or if we do efforts in the future like AdWords and whatever, we can kind of see how well those are doing or not, and compare approaches. Maybe one approach is working better than another, kind of thing. So
that's great.
Yeah, API needs a little love. The search isn't tied in correctly yet, and I think it'd be interesting to get YouTube analytics in if it's tied into these meetings, and we could actually see like, oh, X many people joined the meeting last week or whatever. It'd be kind of fun.
Yeah.
So
that's great. Well, thank you for setting those up. I saw them come in and I was like completely impressed because I did not know you could do that with Google Analytics data. So it looks great.
Yeah.
And I think it would be super useful too, especially if we start like changing the site to see if the changes we're making are working. So great to have that.
If anyone wants to know how to do this kind of thing or anything, they can go ahead and ask me. It's really easy actually. So ta-da.
All right. Well, that's it for our outreach meeting today. We've got another meeting starting 2 minutes ago. We should probably all jump into if you're interested. Or Neil, I don't know if you're going to be around for the next meeting, but thank you for joining this meeting anyway. And it would be great if you were interested in coming to the next one, which I guess in 2 weeks, if you wanted to. Yeah, and we can kind of help start moving stuff forward. All right, well, I'm going to restart my computer, so it'll be a couple minutes before I see you guys. I'm going to try and fix my technology problems. So see you soon.
All right, skipping the dev call. See y'all later.
Bye.